hot air balloon with nearly 24 people inside in one of the biggest tourist destinations in the world to explode and plummet to the ground.
Two hot air balloons ran into each other. You can see how one of the baskets then falls to the ground.
A couple was killed and their daughter was injured when the hot air balloon they were riding in caught fire.
16 people were killed in July of last year when the balloon hit power lines and crashed near Austin, Texas.
Imagine soaring through the sky in a hot air balloon, only for disaster to strike at 1,500 feet, sending you into a terrifying free fall. In another shocking case, passengers leaped from 1,000 feet in a desperate attempt to survive.
We'll kill.
People jumping off.
From fireballs in the sky to mid-air collisions, these tragedies are nothing short of horrifying. Join us on this gripping adventure as we recount the 7 deadliest hot air balloon crashes ever. The history of hot air balloons. The hot air balloon is the very first way humans ever took to the skies, dating all the way back to the late 1700s. This incredible invention is credited to 2 French brothers, Joseph Michel and Jacques-Étienne Montgolfier, who were originally paper manufacturers but had a passion for aviation.
Joseph, all you think about is balloons. All you talk about is balloons. Your beautiful house is full of bits and pieces of balloons.
Legend has it that Joseph was watching a fire one day when he noticed embers rising with the heat. That simple observation sparked an ambitious idea. What if this same force could be used to lift people into the air? He even dreamed of using it to attack the heavily fortified Gibraltar fortress from above. Inspired by this vision, the Montgolfier brothers built the first ever hot air balloon.
You know, when you showed me the plans in Paris, I could not believe that we should be the first men who would fly.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Which took its first untethered manned flight in 1783. While modern technology has refined the design, the core principle remains unchanged. A massive fabric bag, known as the envelope, is filled with heated air produced by an open flame, usually powered by liquid propane. Since warm air is lighter than the cooler air outside, the balloon rises effortlessly. Pilots can control altitude by adjusting the temperature inside the envelope, while wind determines the direction of travel. Beneath the envelope, a sturdy wicker basket, or gondola, carries passengers on their airborne adventure. Hot air ballooning is often considered one of the safest aerial sports, offering breathtaking views and a peaceful floating experience. However, history has also seen its share of tragic accidents, reminding us that even this graceful form of flight comes with risks. Luxor disaster, 2013. At sunrise on February 26, 2013, a hot air balloon carrying 21 people took off from Luxor, Egypt, for what was supposed to be a breathtaking journey over the ancient wonders of the Nile. Operated by Sky Cruise, the flight offered a panoramic view of the Valley of the Kings, the Temple of Karnak, and the vast desert beyond. It was a dreamlike experience for the tourists on board, a highlight of their trip to one of the world's most historic regions. But within moments of attempting to land, that dream turned into an unimaginable nightmare. One that would leave 19 people dead in the worst hot air balloon disaster in history.
A dawn flight over the ancient Egyptian city of Luxor has ended in disaster. At least 19 tourists have died in a hot air balloon crash.
The aircraft, registered as SU-283, was piloted by 29-year-old Momin Murad. His job was to guide the balloon safely over Luxor's stunning landscape before bringing it back to the ground, where a team of 10 ground crew members waited to secure it. After approximately 25 minutes in the air, the captain radioed his crew, signaling the intended landing location. As the balloon descended to about 10 feet above the ground, a drop line was thrown to the crew, allowing them to stabilize the basket. But within seconds, everything changed. A sudden fire erupted near the balloon's burner system. Flames spread rapidly, consuming the lower part of the envelope and filling the basket with thick smoke. Panic gripped the passengers.
This evening, investigators are trying to figure out what caused a hot air balloon with nearly 24 people inside in one of the biggest tourist destinations in the world to explode and plummet to the ground.
The first to react was Captain Murad. who, realizing he was on fire, made a desperate decision. He climbed over the edge of the basket and jumped. British tourist Michael Rennie, seeing no other way to escape, followed suit, throwing himself from the burning aircraft. As crew members rushed to assist the badly burned captain, an even greater catastrophe unfolded. With several ground crew members now distracted, the remaining team could no longer hold on to the drop line. The balloon, still ablaze, suddenly became untethered and began to rise uncontrollably. 19 terrified passengers were trapped inside, soaring hundreds of feet into the sky with no way out. As the balloon climbed to nearly 1,000 feet, witnesses on the ground watched in horror as desperate passengers started jumping, one by one, in a frantic attempt to escape the flames.
When the hot air balloon was about 1,000 feet from the ground, it went plummeting down, and in fact at that point, one of the tourists on board the balloon jumped from the balloon.
But from such a height, survival was impossible. Within moments, the fire consumed too much of the balloon's envelope, causing it to lose lift. The burning wreckage spiraled downward, plunging into a sugarcane field just west of Luxor. The crash left a devastating scene. Rescuers found 18 passengers dead at the impact site. Among them was Yvonne Rennie, the wife of Michael Rennie, who had jumped earlier. A British tourist, Joe Bampton, had also leaped from the balloon but survived the initial fall. He was rushed to a Cairo hospital, where doctors fought to save him, but his injuries were too severe. He died shortly after. The final death toll stood at 19, making it the deadliest hot air balloon accident in history. Investigators worked quickly to determine the cause of the disaster. Early rumors suggested the balloon had struck a power line, but experts soon dismissed this theory.
And witnesses are telling us that there was some sort of explosion on the hot air balloon, possibly from the gas canisters that exploded.
Instead, forensic examination of the wreckage revealed that the fire had started due to a leak in the fuel hose connected to the burners. This hose, which had been in use since 2005, had accumulated excessive wear over time. When it finally gave way, leaking gas ignited instantly, turning the balloon into a fireball in the sky. In the wake of the tragedy, Egyptian authorities temporarily suspended all hot air balloon flights in Luxor and launched an investigation into the country's ballooning industry. The investigation also raised serious concerns about the pre-flight safety procedures. Prosecutors determined that neither Captain Murad nor the maintenance engineer had conducted necessary technical checks before takeoff. The aging fuel line had been a ticking time bomb, and no one had noticed. Murad denied responsibility, insisting that his checklist did not require him to inspect that particular area of the balloon. Although he was initially charged with manslaughter, details about any legal consequences remain unclear. The final crash report, published on January 7, 2014, concluded that the fire was entirely preventable. It blamed poor maintenance and lack of proper pre-flight inspections as the primary factors leading to the disaster. Despite this, no significant changes to Egypt's hot air balloon safety regulations were made public. Alice Spring Crash, 1989. On a clear morning on August 13, 1989, near Alice Springs, Northern Territory, Australia, tragedy struck the world of hot air ballooning. Two colorful balloons soared high above the dry, open land, offering a peaceful ride and breathtaking views of the rugged landscape. Yet fate took a cruel turn when a mid-air collision changed everything in a matter of moments. The accident began when one balloon started to rise rapidly, unexpectedly colliding with another balloon already floating in the sky. The impact was sudden and violent, as the envelope of the lower balloon caught the basket of the upper one, creating a tear as big as a bedsheet. In just 51 seconds, the once graceful flight turned into a deadly plunge toward the Earth. The damaged balloon began to lose its strength and control. Witnesses recalled that it seemed to fold like a streamer, drifting downward in a slow yet ominous descent. One tourist in a nearby balloon described the scene in simple terms. He saw one balloon rising quickly beneath another, the lower balloon striking the other and causing a ripple of terror across the sky. The pilot of the doomed balloon tried desperately to pump hot air into the damaged envelope, but his efforts proved in vain. With the gas burners already turned off before the crash, there was little chance of preventing the tragedy as the balloon shook violently and began its fatal descent. When the balloon finally hit the ground between two small trees and open scrubland about 16 kilometers from the local airport, the impact was catastrophic. The powerful descent claimed the lives of all on board. The pilot and 12 passengers, including 10 Australians, lost their lives in this heart-wrenching accident. Among the victims were 6 men and 6 women, and 2 passengers came from faraway lands, one from Denmark and another Italian resident of Monaco. The loss of life resonated deeply within the community and sent shockwaves around the world. This crash remained the deadliest hot air balloon accident in Australia and was later surpassed only by incidents in Egypt and Texas. The crash left a lasting mark on all who witnessed it. Emergency services rushed to the scene after a pilot in one of the other balloons made a radio call for help. Passengers in the remaining balloons were treated for shock, their relief contrasting with the devastation below. Horrifying images of the accident were imprinted in the minds of those who saw the torn red and black envelope of the fallen balloon, described as being as large as a bedsheet, and the basket with tangled bodies. The chaos and despair of that morning were hard to forget, as the balloon was torn apart and thrown into the barren land. In the days following the disaster, the investigation revealed troubling details. The collision occurred when the lower balloon's envelope unexpectedly caught the basket of the upper balloon. It was later found that the pilot of the upper balloon, Michael Sandby, had not kept a proper lookout during a crucial 30-second period when the other balloon was hidden from view. This lapse led to his conviction for committing a dangerous act, a charge that was unique to the Northern Territory. Although he was found not guilty of manslaughter charges, he was sentenced to 2 years in jail. Later, his conviction was overturned on appeal. Lockhart crash, 2016. On a fateful summer morning on July 30th, 2016, a vibrant adventure turned into a nightmare in the skies above Lockhart, Texas. The incident involved a Baloney Kubitschek BB-85Z hot air balloon, registered as N2469L, operated by the Heart of Texas Balloon Ride Company, a firm well known for its beautiful sightseeing tours in the greater Austin area. What began as a leisurely, 1-hour flight over the breathtaking Texas countryside quickly descended into tragedy when the balloon encountered a catastrophic collision with power lines. At approximately 7:42, amid the soft glow of dawn, the smiling balloon struck power lines in the unincorporated community of Maxwell, located about 30 miles south of Austin. The impact triggered a chain reaction that led to the balloon bursting into flames and plummeting into a field. The rapid escalation of the situation left little time for escape, and despite the brave efforts of emergency responders, alerted at 7:44 about what was initially reported as a possible vehicle accident, all 16 souls on board perished. Among the victims were the experienced pilot and 15 hopeful passengers, each drawn by the allure of a serene adventure turned perilous. Eyewitnesses later recalled the eerie sequence of events. One observer described hearing 2 distinct pops before the silence that followed, a sound initially mistaken for a gunshot.
Like a gunfire explosion.
You saw a big fireball go up, and it's just praying that whoever was there got away from the thing in time.
These auditory cues marked the beginning of the end of a seemingly ordinary journey that quickly morphed into one of the deadliest ballooning disasters in the history of the United States. In a tragic twist of fate, the balloon lost contact with ground controllers about half an hour into its scheduled 1-hour flight, leaving no opportunity for rescue or warning before disaster struck. As emergency crews rushed to the scene, they found the basket engulfed in flames, a stark, devastating reminder of how swiftly joy can turn into sorrow. The balloon's envelope, which had carried the promise of serene flights and panoramic views, landed approximately 3/4 of a mile northeast of the charred gondola. In the minutes following the crash, the full extent of the devastation became painfully clear. The flight, which had initially covered about 8 nautical miles, or roughly 15 kilometers, ended in a tragic collision that disrupted the lives of so many families and communities. The Lockhart crash is etched in memory as not only a technical failure, but as a stark illustration of the unpredictable power of nature and the inherent risks of ballooning. As investigators later scrutinized the details, the incident raised critical questions about safety standards, regulatory compliance, and the operational challenges of aerial sightseeing. Operating under provisions of 14 Code of Federal Regulations Part 91, the flight was considered a standard sightseeing journey, until that fateful moment when unforeseen circumstances led to an unimaginable loss of life. In the aftermath of the disaster, grief and shock rippled across the community. Families, friends, and the broader community were left mourning the lives of those lost, while experts and regulators were prompted to re-examine safety protocols for recreational aviation. The lessons learned from this disaster have since contributed to ongoing discussions about improving the standards of operation for hot air balloon flights, ensuring that the skies remain a place of wonder rather than danger. Lucerne tragedy, 2004. In July 2004, a tragedy unfolded at the Swiss Transport Museum in Lucerne when the tethered hot air balloon known as the High Flyer soared into disaster. What should have been a scenic ride turned into a horrifying ordeal as strong winds whipped the overloaded balloon into chaos. The High Flyer, packed with more passengers than it was designed to carry, rose into dangerous weather conditions, and within moments, the situation spiraled out of control. Violent gusts tossed the balloon about, slamming it repeatedly into the museum and a nearby tree. Amid this violent struggle, the winch cable meant to control the descent turned deadly. It sliced through a floor panel in the gondola, and a woman lost her grip as she fell through the opening, plummeting to the ground where she sustained fatal injuries. At the same time, 10 other passengers were seriously injured by the repeated impacts as the balloon collided with solid structures. Investigators from the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau quickly began probing the incident, uncovering a series of errors that led to the catastrophic outcome. They found that the High Flyer was not only overloaded, but had also been operated in conditions well above safe limits. Records showed that during the months leading up to the accident, nearly 1/4 of all ascents were made with an excess number of passengers, a practice that clearly ignored safety regulations. In addition to the overload, a critical wind warning had been sent by Meteo Suisse, the National Weather Service, to the balloon's operations center by fax. The crew, however, failed to relay this warning to the pilots, who proceeded with the ascent despite the dangerously high winds. The choice of location further worsened the situation. The balloon was launched too close to the museum building and trees, leaving little room for error when the conditions turned adverse. The combination of high winds, overcrowding, and an unsuitable launch site resulted in the balloon swinging violently and striking obstacles multiple times. Each impact contributed to the overall chaos that led to the fatal incident and multiple injuries. The winch cable, which should have been a tool for safety, instead became a deadly weapon when it severed the gondola's floor, proving that human error in monitoring equipment and following protocols can lead to irreversible consequences. The investigation did not stop at identifying these shortcomings. The Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau issued 15 safety recommendations aimed at preventing future tragedies. Among these were the installation of storm warning lights near the balloon platform to ensure that operators are alerted to dangerous weather conditions, and the development of an electronic overload warning system that could help maintain proper passenger limits. These recommendations were intended to enforce stricter safety measures and ensure that weather warnings are heeded. In response, the Federal Civil Aviation Office grounded the High Flyer indefinitely and set about tightening regulations and improving training for tethered balloon operators and pilots. The Swiss Transport Museum expressed a desire to see the attraction return after implementing new safety measures, yet the cost of a new balloon, estimated at over $600,000, posed a significant challenge. New Zealand disaster, 2012. It all began as a cheerful escape into the skies. The Mr. Big hot air balloon lifted off from Carterton on a crisp January morning, carrying 10 passengers and 1 pilot into a day that promised breathtaking views and an adventure like no other. At 900 meters above the ground, The thrill of drifting amid clear blue skies and a stunning landscape filled everyone with joy. Birds soared nearby as the basket gently floated, and all on board felt the magic of a perfect start. No one could have foreseen that this joyous journey would swiftly transform into one of New Zealand's deadliest ballooning disasters. Within minutes of the smooth liftoff, everything appeared normal. The pilot, Lance Hopping, a 53-year-old with more than 1,000 hours of commercial ballooning under his belt, maintained constant communication with the ground crew. Local residents and the passengers' families watched from below, their hearts light with anticipation. The calm winds and bright early light of a New Zealand summer morning were ideal for such an experience. The crew confirmed that the launch site was clear, and Hopping assured them that all was well as he began guiding the balloon through the picturesque skies. However, as the flight progressed, a series of unexpected events set the stage for disaster. When the pilot received a call reminding him that landing time was near, he radioed the chase vehicles to prepare for his planned landing near Somerset Road. The chase vehicles, which play a crucial role in assisting the pilot with landing and transporting passengers, moved to the predetermined area, expecting a safe touchdown. In a puzzling maneuver, Hopping initially moved the balloon away from the agreed landing zone, only to later make a U-turn and drift back. This sudden change of direction proved fateful. A gentle breeze nudged the balloon off its intended course as it passed over a nearby silage paddock. Only a few hundred meters from the landing site, the balloon began to ascend again despite being so close to the ground. In a tragic twist of fate, the balloon drifted toward a 33 kilovolt power line standing about 9 meters high. In a desperate attempt to avoid the looming hazard, Hopping applied the burners to gain altitude. Instead, the basket became entangled with 3 of the top wires. What happened next was both sudden and catastrophic.
But the focus for most New Zealanders today was the hot air balloon disaster that claimed 11 lives.
The balloon continued its unintended climb while dragging the heavy power cables upward. In a cruel moment of destiny, electrical arcing occurred, igniting the lower part of the basket. The fire quickly engulfed the structure as one of the liquefied petroleum gas cylinders ruptured, releasing fuel that fed the flames. 2 passengers, in a frantic bid to escape the growing inferno, jumped from the basket only to fall fatally to the ground. On the ground, family members and crew members watched in horror as the blaze took over the balloon.
They were saying, "Come now, we need you. Mum and Dad have been in a balloon accident. It's burst into flames and they're dead."
The sound of screams mixed with the crackle of flames became a haunting reminder that joy had turned into terror. Despite the pilot's best efforts to free the basket from the high-voltage wires, the arcing led to a full-blown disaster. Within moments, the balloon, still ascending, reached an altitude of about 20 meters before the wires finally snapped. For another 40 seconds, the burning balloon rose higher, its envelope slowly succumbing to the flames before it began its fatal descent. Emergency vehicles rushed to the scene, arriving only minutes after the chaos had unfolded. Local first responders did all they could to extinguish the fire and save lives, but the damage was already done. 11 souls, including Lance Hopping, were lost that day. The wreckage, surrounded by shattered power lines and the remnants of what was once a vessel of hope and adventure, told a grim story of misfortune and human error. Subsequent investigations by the Transport Accident Investigation Commission revealed a series of tragic miscalculations. Although the balloon and its parts had been properly maintained, the pilot's judgment was found to be impaired. Post-mortem toxicology tests showed that Hopping had THC in his blood, suggesting recent cannabis use. This revelation, along with other findings, sparked recommendations for stricter regulations on performance-impairing substances in aviation. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. On a breezy autumn afternoon, young inventor Leo discovered a forgotten journal hidden in the attic of his ancestral home. The journal, bound in worn leather, detailed the mystifying fate of his family's legacy in the skies. The entries chronicled the surreal adventures of daring balloonists and eerie accidents. As Leo deciphered the faded ink, he found a chapter ominously titled 7 Deadliest Hot Air Balloon Crashes Ever. Captivated by the mystery, Leo embarked on a quest to piece together the bizarre events that led to these catastrophic crashes. He built a peculiar hot air balloon outfitted with curious contraptions and navigated the cloud-laden skies in search of clues. On his journey, he encountered spectral figures and witnessed celestial phenomena that defied explanation. Every twist and turn in the skies unveiled secrets from a bygone era. A clandestine society of balloonists, hidden messages etched into the balloon's fabric, and an unspoken bond between those who dared to fly. Through his thrilling adventure, Leo uncovered that these crashes were not mere accidents, but deliberate orchestrations by a shadowy force. Determined to write a new chapter in his family's saga, he prepared for a final confrontation with destiny. The skies awaited his courageous challenge. Lublana Marsh's Calamity, 2012. On a crisp morning on August 23, 2012, a routine sightseeing flight turned into a nightmare that would scar the hearts of many and forever alter the course of hot air ballooning in Slovenia. A commercial hot air balloon, the largest of its kind, a Lindstrand Balloons LBL 600C, carried 32 eager passengers, mostly tourists hoping for a magical view of the countryside. As the balloon ascended into the clear skies, few could have imagined that within hours, it would become the center of one of the deadliest hot air balloon crashes ever. In the early hours of the day, at exactly 7:54 a.m. Central European summertime, the calmness of the morning was shattered by a sudden and violent storm. A fast-moving weather front brought with it heavy winds and an unexpected change in conditions. The pilot, faced with the onslaught of the turbulent weather, made a split-second decision to attempt an emergency landing. However, nature was far more powerful than anyone could have prepared for. The balloon encountered dangerous wind shear, a rapid change in wind speed and direction, which made it nearly impossible to control the descent. In a heart-wrenching moment, the balloon collided with a stand of trees along the Lublana marsh, setting off a devastating chain of events. The impact was fierce, and the balloon burst into flames shortly after hitting the trees. The fire spread quickly, trapping passengers in the burning wreckage. The destruction was immediate and horrifying. 4 people lost their lives on the scene, their remains too badly damaged to be recognized. These victims were from Lublana, a couple, their young 11-year-old daughter, and another woman in her mid-50s, leaving a community shattered by grief. The accident did not end with these initial fatalities. Despite the frantic efforts of rescuers, 2 more victims later succumbed to their injuries. One woman, who fought valiantly for 2 weeks, and a 59-year-old man, whose struggle ended in a hospital a few days later, added to the mounting tragedy. In the immediate aftermath, the nation was left grappling with the shock and horror of what had happened. By the evening of the same day, a solemn mass was held at St. Michael's Church on the Marshes in Kernavas. The service, led by Bishop Anton Jamnik, brought together around 400 people who gathered to pray for the dead and injured, their hearts heavy with sorrow and disbelief. The community's grief was palpable, and the loss resonated deeply with all who attended. Investigators from the Slovenian Aircraft Accident Investigation Commission soon arrived to piece together the events leading up to the crash. Their investigation revealed that the accident was caused by a mix of human error and nature's unpredictable fury. The report criticized the handling of the landing phase, stating that the pilot had not employed the proper techniques for a balloon of that size during a severe weather change. They also pointed out that there was a failure to fully plan for the rapidly shifting meteorological conditions. These findings sparked heated debates, and during a preliminary hearing, the pilot vehemently denied any wrongdoing, pleading not guilty to the charges that he had endangered the lives of everyone on board. In the ensuing trial, which began in November 2016, the court examined every detail of that tragic day. After a lengthy legal process, and with the aid of an expert from abroad, the district court ultimately exonerated the pilot. The decision, however, did little to ease the collective grief of those affected by the disaster. The lives lost and the families forever changed by that day remained a stark reminder of the fine line between adventure and calamity. Rosier's crash. 1785. In the late 18th century, adventure and daring merged with innovation to create a moment that would forever change the course of aviation. Jean-François Pilatre de Rosières, a visionary inventor with an insatiable hunger for progress, and his brave companion embarked on an extraordinary journey in a unique balloon that combined the force of hydrogen with the warmth of hot air. This daring hybrid, a clever twist on the Montgolfier brothers' creation, embodied mankind's relentless quest to soar above the earth. In June of 1785, the pair set out to achieve what many deemed impossible, a crossing of the vast English Channel from France to England. With hearts full of hope and eyes fixed on a promising horizon, they ascended into the open sky, trusting in their ingenuity and courage. Their flight was filled with moments of wonder and the thrill of exploration as they drifted over shimmering waters, united in their dream of breaking new ground in human flight. Yet nature's unpredictable strength soon intervened. As the balloon sailed gracefully through the air, a sudden, violent gust of wind struck, forcing the craft back several miles from its intended path. In a heartbeat, the hybrid balloon became a stage for disaster when flames mysteriously ignited, rapidly engulfing the delicate vessel. The cause of the fire remains unknown, casting an eerie shadow over this groundbreaking voyage. The intense heat and swift loss of buoyancy sent de Rosières and his companion hurtling downward from a staggering height of nearly 1,500 feet, a fall more dramatic than that from many towering modern structures. In that fatal moment, the promise of boundless skies transformed into a catastrophe that marked the first known air crash deaths in history. Their sacrifice underscored the peril that lies in the intersection of ambition and the raw forces of nature. Which of these heart-stopping balloon disasters left you most speechless? And do you believe we can learn enough from these tragedies to truly make the skies safer?